Good afternoon, everybody. Appreciate you guys joining us today, and just wanted to first start out and make sure that I personally say thank you to everybody in our building that makes it possible for us to do what we do every single day. Always starts with our ownership and the resources that they provide us, and ultimately how fortunate I feel to be in a position to lead this team. And although we came up short of the goals we had for our season and our team this year, I definitely want to make sure I thank our players. It was a joy to coach this team this year, even in the face of some of the adversity we tried to meet head on week in and week out. These guys continue to battle, fight, band together, and ultimately that locker room was as strong as ever in those moments of adversity. And I think it's a credit to those guys and our leadership and everything that they're all about. I think our identity and what we want to be, what we want to have as far as the characteristics of players being tough, accountable, guys that want to be a part of this building every single day for the right reasons. And I feel so strongly about so much of our core being just that. And we know we're going to continue to chase what we came here to do, and what our players know is the ultimate goal, and that's chasing a world championship, and in the short term making sure we're right back where we should be, competing for the NFC North title, and we feel very strongly about our ability to do that. Together with Kwesi, I look forward to attacking the challenges of the offseason that come each and every year, and I'm excited about the opportunity to do so, excited about our coaching staff, feel very strongly about our coordinators, and ultimately the leadership in this organization that I get blessed to work with every single day. Me personally, I do feel like I've grown a lot in this role. I came in here with kind of that growth mindset of feeling very strongly about the principles that I want this football team to have, the type of culture we want to have and continue to thrive and grow every single day, and ultimately staying true to the process that I believe will lead to the results that we want and that we're going to work towards. And then lastly, I know I mentioned it many, many times at the podium this year, just our fans. We didn't have the type of success that we should at home, especially with our great fans and what U.S. Bank Stadium means to me and our team. I just think we're so fortunate to have the opportunity to have the home field advantage that we do, and we need to get back, like we did a season ago, to the type of success that we need to have defending our home turf, and that'll be a huge priority going into 2024. But with that, I'll turn it over to Kwesi.
I'd like to start off by just echoing Kevin's thoughts of gratitude. First, our players. Obviously, we faced a lot of adversity this season, and I think Kevin said it to the team on their exit, but we never saw them blink. Not a moment did we not see them fight till the end. And obviously, it didn't end up where we wanted it to, but that doesn't mean their effort wasn't exemplary. Same with our coaches. They spent a lot of time away from their families, helping us maintain a standard. And, as somebody who watches that closely, when I leave the building late, they're all still there. And so I want to make sure I send that appreciation. And our whole football operation, incredible effort put forward. And again, just because we didn't get where we wanted to go doesn't mean that there wasn't effort at that championship level. Our ownership group, the Wolves, and everything they provide us are incredible. And then our fans, obviously, I don't take it for granted for 1 second that I get to be in a place in this job where football matters and we have a great fan base. I'll keep it brief. We faced a lot of adversity this season, but you want to get to a point in your program where you can overcome that adversity and still be playing in the tournament. And obviously, we didn't meet that, and we're going to spend this offseason working our butts off to get there with collaboration, everything we have in this building, because it doesn't feel good to be up here not playing, and we want to keep going towards that goal. With that, we'll take questions.
How have you two evolved in terms of when you first got in? This is the first time for both of you. You had like 3 acquisitions during the season with Acres and Risners and Dodd. What is it like? How do you guys collaborate, personnel, on decisions for the future? How does that work?
Yeah, I would say that started really with the interview process. We developed a common language, how we communicate with each other, how we talk about risk reward, how it's going to be on the field, what this means to our team. So we're very comfortable in those situations right now. I think we've done a pretty good job of addressing needs in those ways, and that collaboration will continue. It's not just with Kevin, it's with my staff, with his coaches, a lot of people in this building who I think this building does a really good job of incorporating a lot of different viewpoints, and we'll continue to try and get better with our process to make sure those viewpoints result in just the best results we can.
Kwesi, a couple of years ago, you used the term competitive rebuild.
Yep.
Where are you in that competitive rebuild?
Yeah, I think when you look at that, the point of that was to still provide ourselves a chance in the tournament every year while regaining financial flexibility, finding the next generation of great Vikings players, incorporating our systems that we value so much. And I think when you look back at it, I think we've done a lot of positives. I think we've regained some of our financial flexibility. We have competed to be in the tournament last year as the division champions, and this year, through adversity, had a lot of meaningful games late. And there's some things we need to be better at, no question. I think, you want to get to a point from a top end standpoint where you can overcome the adversity we have, and so right now in the competitive rebuild, we want to get to a place where there's no rebuild, right? It's just competitive in a window, and I think we're close to that. It's going to take a big offseason. That's why we're going to be here a lot, and I think it's important and it's key, and I'm excited for the challenge.
You guys talk about the adversity that you faced, but what did this year teach you about yourselves and your roles?
Yeah, I know for me personally, part of leadership is, leading from the front in those times of adversity, and even sometimes, when things get hard, you need to be at your best for your team. And I think the players and the coaches, that's what they look for in me. And I'd like to think that through that adversity, I was able to do that enough to know that there's a lot of things that I still need to improve on, still need to grow from. Evaluate every aspect of not only my own personal process of how I go about the preparation of our football team, but then the ebbs and flows of the season, and making sure that I'm doing everything possible with the experience that I've gained to continue to put our team in the best possible situations to feel like when they hit the field for 3.5 hours on Sunday that they're at their absolute best because of how we prepared mentally, how we prepared physically, how we handled the transitions of the schedule of the NFL season. And then, as we started talking throughout the season, that next man up mentality, it became pretty much a weekly dialogue for us in this room. But what does that really look like from the standpoint of being able to sustain? What are we doing from a player development standpoint? How are we maximizing our time year-round with the guys on our roster? And that's something that I feel very strongly about spearheading and making sure that we're constantly chasing kind of the improvement, but understanding that it's okay for me to be constantly evolving and growing, and that's what makes this job what it is. It's something that you know that's what it's going to be, the reality of it. And I'll never forget Coach Grant talking to me about that as the evolving and the learning and the growing he was doing after all the success he had in his career down to his very last opportunity to be a head coach in this league, and that always stuck with me. And I think that's what the opportunity to become a head coach, you better be willing to constantly have that mindset, and that's something I feel very strongly about.
Kwesi, you mentioned depth. When you look at your 2022 draft, you use a lot of capital on defensive guys. After 2 years, the impact's been minimal. You don't even know if these guys are building blocks for the future. How does that impact trying to rebuild that roster and elevate your defense?
Yeah, it's a great question. And ultimately, when you talk about young players, the path isn't always linear, right? It's when you study these things, first and foremost, you know that when you study development curves, nobody's peaking in year one. That's not how it happens. And also, that players sometimes it's year 3, 5, whatever it is for different situations. And where it's hard is when you have a player that you have some belief that they could be something in the future. If you bring in a veteran who's probably better today, you limit that potential for ever seeing it. So it's that go between, which is it's difficult. Every team faces it. I'm not going to sit here and ask and say that our challenge is any different than anybody else's. But to your point, it is something we have to be thoughtful and really be accountable to. At the end of the day, it's a results business for me, for everybody in this building. And so at some point, we need to just ask those hard questions and see where we're going with those things. But I can tell you this. You believe in those positive sloping lines as long as they show up, do the right things, or about the right stuff. And a lot of the guys you're talking about are, and we're going to keep believing in them, but we're also going to obviously be prepared to improve this roster the best way we see fit.
Drilling down on that, two of the players in that group are Lewis Seen and Andrew Booth, two high picks. Why didn't they play this year, and do you think they have a future with you guys? With Kwesi, I guess.
I think obviously who plays is obviously who gives us the best chance to win today. And GMs, I'm sure always, gyms are probably always willing to take a little bit more risk today versus the future. But all I can say with those two particular players is they work their butts off. They show up. They do all the right things. Everything's different in different situations. Lewis Seen didn't have a rookie year pretty much, right? He got the injury, and now he comes to learn a new defense with Brian Flores. So I think that has to be considered. And then Andrew Bruce, same thing, learning from a new defense, adjusting to this style of play. We're going to continue to believe in our people, pour into them with our player development resources, all the things we have in this building. But as I said earlier, it is a results business at the end of the day, and we'll see where we end up. But those guys have shown us nothing but reason to believe that they're going to keep on their upward path wherever that ends up. And ultimately, when you make these decisions, we don't know that to start, but we have our beliefs, and we're going to adjust as we see fit.
Kwesi, would you like to bring Kirk back?
Yeah, I've said it. I think I've been pretty consistent with that. Kirk, the player, is somebody that, as we saw what he does to this team, I thought we were playing really good football before he got injured. And it's the most important position in sports now. Ultimately, it always comes down to, can you find an agreement that works for both sides and all those things. But as a player, it's certainly my intention to have him back here.
As you approach that negotiation, what is most important to you?
It's a comfortability. I think there's a lot of factors that go into negotiations, right? So it's their levers that you pull. If you get this thing, maybe you give up this other thing. We have a really great shared history with Mike and his other representation. And so these aren't new conversations that are having, right? We each side kind of understands the other, and we're going to go have those conversations and see where we end up.
Kwesi, he talked the other day about structure being important to him. Does his age, does the injury affect your willingness to give guaranteed money into the future if that's something that's important to him in structure?
I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into these things. It's age, injury, but it's also performance. Do you believe? How do you believe the performance will go? And there's different examples through time, and obviously you have to also pay attention to the person and what he puts into his body and how regimented and detailed he is. So all those factors go into it. But at the end of the day, you're just taking risk. We try and measure it as best we can and protect ourselves and insure against it. But on his side, he's trying to take less risk, right? That's his job, and they should do that. And we'll try and find a place in the middle and see where we end up.
How do you balance wanting Kirk back with having a borderline top 10 pick and a pretty talented quarterback draft?
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately it's the most important position in our sport, and so you want to be thinking long term and short term. And ultimately, the Vikings are going to, pursue actions that help us in the both windows, and that's open to any position in the draft, whether we picked 11th or 23rd.
There's been sort of a public narrative that thinks that the owners would not be in favor, and we can ask them when they're available, but would not be in favor of sort of pulling the Band-Aid off and just kind of drafting a quarterback and going with him week one. Has that ever been communicated explicitly to you that is something that, or even implicitly to you, that would be something that is not on the table here?
No, I don't know where that information is coming from. We have a lot of thoughtful dialogue together where lots of ideas are discussed. I don't know that there's ever one stance, and you're also talking about different people, right? Different people in the ownership group. But I don't know that there's ever one stance. We just talk about what our time horizon and what our goals and where we think best to do that. They're from a really sound business mind, and they think really strategically, and we have those conversations in that way, but nobody's ever said specifically do not do X or Y. No.
Or in a larger sense, just to make moves and make decisions that might in the short term impact competitiveness to the benefit
Today,
of the long term.
long term. Yeah, and I don't know that anything's been said clearly. We talk about it in those ways though, and then you kind of just see what's your best path forward. Now, ultimately, taking a step back in the short term isn't a big deal if you don't think you're actually close to there, right? And those are always the conversations we try and have and go about them.
Do you think you are?
I think at different times this year, you would say that we've shown it in the last 2 years, in fact. But I think you want to get to that place in your program again, like I said, where it's consistent year in and year out. You can overcome adversity, and we're not there to that standard yet, no. But we've made the playoffs. We've been in playoff contention for a lot of this year through a lot of things. So I think we're pointed in the right direction. It's going to take a big offseason for me to answer that question a little bit more and in short order next time.
Kwesi, do resign Cousins and sign Jefferson and Aerosol is going to be a big deal. Will you have enough money to fix your roster and make the changes you need?
Yeah, I think, we have a lot of talented people in the salary cap department, and it's really just being thoughtful about those contracts, the risk of those contracts, the money out in the future, and all those different things. So I believe we do. It depends on now. If you do one thing, it maybe changes a different option that you can do. But I believe we do have the ability to both address those offensive players you're talking about, but also provide resources for the defense.
Kevin, you played the position of quarterback. Do you have a new premium on how to develop a backup quarterback? Given what you guys went through this year, do you have a new ideas or thoughts, because that position becomes so important that you almost, I don't know if you have to assume going into the season that your starting quarterback will be there in terms of mindset?
Yeah, I think, you definitely learned kind of through the second half of the season just the ebbs and flows of playing multiple guys and having to bring somebody into your organization on, really on a short week, and they end up leading you to a victory, and just taking the whole inventory of it. I'm a huge fan of quarterback development in itself. I think Kirk Cousins has, been a guy that from the time I coached him previously with another team to coming here excited about the opportunity to really build and grow, side by side with Kirk, building what we believe to be, a chance to have a special offense. I do think it's important, though, that we as coaches and working, with Kwesi, and we make sure we solidify a winning path in that room that revolves around your starter. And most teams in this league are going to be hard pressed, and there's been a lot of teams that have been having to answer that question this year around the NFL. It was a pretty unique year as far as backups, and in some cases playing 2 or 3 or 4 guys. Are you equipped? What's your roster around that player look like? How do you need to maybe adjust the way you try to play the game and win with a complementary style differently than maybe you originally intended? But I do think it's something we've got to pour into, both the development of the guys on our roster, and then as we, acquire players as well at all positions, really taking a look at what does our depth look like. It seems to be, much more of a premium at the quarterback position because so much, so many other factors of your team rely on that position being to a certain standard to have a chance to win football games. And I think it's a really good question, and I think it's one that we've got to, make sure we feel great about the depth and really plan for what types of scenarios we could face, and we faced a lot of them this year.
Yeah, so much of your offseason planning was kind of built around offensive continuity, bringing back the O-line.
Yep.
A few snaps into week 1, you had to make changes. How do you go about evaluating with such a limited amount of, like, your first team 11 personnel keeping together this season?
Yeah, it's funny because even when you look back on, sequences and different parts of the year where you felt very strongly about what we were doing, specifically kind of that stretch there, San Francisco into our trip up to Lambeau Field, and JJ wasn't out there for that game, or early on in the year where we were, pretty effective moving the football when we did have at least, 10 of the original 11 out there that we thought we would have. And then, the turnover thing caused us to, hit some speed bumps there. So I think it's a comprehensive look at, what we've done really over 2 years. I think our offense has grown. I think we found some tools and some things to help, our best players thrive when we can have them out there as a full group. But ultimately, nobody's going to ever feel sorry for anybody in this league when you don't have, a premier player at the receiver position, or you're going to have, 8, 9, whatever combinations of offensive linemen out there throughout the year. A guy like TJ going down when he did, the type of season he was having, and then clearly the quarterback adversity that we did have. Nobody's going to feel sorry for that. My job is to make sure we're consistently doing what we need to do week in and week out to win football games. And it was definitely a process for us this year, and specifically for me. And I'd like to think that all experience, I have strong belief, is good experience if you use it the right way, and that's what we transition to now as we get into this offseason and start building the 2024 roster.
Coach, this is maybe kind of a two-parter, but you talked about confidence in the coordinators, I guess specifically with Coach Flores coming in.
Yeah.
What did you enjoy about what he brought this season, and then just kind of what are you looking forward to working with all three of them moving forward?
Yeah, it is a great question, and first and foremost with Flo, could not be more happier with the decision that I made last year to bring him in. He's been everything and then some as far as what he's brought to a mentality to that defensive room. I thought what we created this year was unique and kind of was a product of not only Flo but his defensive staff and guys like Durante Jones, Mike Saravo, Mike Pettin, some of our assistant position coaches in that room. And really the way, I was just very, very happy with the way that group tried to evolve, tried to stay ahead of our opponents and continuously provide challenges for our opponents to play against. And ultimately, I think the most exciting thing is where Flo is going to take that defense from here. And as we can improve our depth and continue to add pieces to that side of the football, I have so much confidence in what he's going to be able to do on that side of the ball. And speaking of depth, just what Matt Daniels was able to do in the special teams phase and the kicking game phase, from a standpoint of everybody always talks about the offense and the defense and how that affects the ability to go run your systems how you want. But Matt Daniels and Dalman Gibson, their ability to adjust with the roster in some cases late in the week. Will we have guys? Will we won't? We're going to have to call guys up. And his ability to prepare, really the entirety of our roster to have an impact and help us function in the kicking game, I thought was really impressive. And some big fakes here and there throughout the year where I had the trust and the faith that, we could pull the trigger on those things. And it's because about the preparation that those guys put in. And then Wes Phillips is my, really right-hand man. I rely on him so much. There's a reason why I wanted to make sure I made that a part of my opening comments, just because of the faith and the confidence I feel in our leadership on the coaching staff. Allows me to feel very, very confident that we're going to continue to press onward in a real positive way.
Kevin, you'll have a couple assistant spots to fill, I assume. Are you planning any changes to the staff?
Yeah, I'll continue to heading back upstairs and continue finishing up with kind of the one-on-one process I do. Monday was really all about the players, getting a chance for Kwesi and I to have one-on-one time with every player on our roster, injured reserve, practice squad, and a lot of growth comes out of that. And I think the big part of that is, the dialogue we can have and give our players the platform to feel like they have a voice in, in what this building's all about. And 2 years in a row now, it's been incredibly productive for us. And then the next phase is the coaching staff. And not only the evaluation that we'll do throughout the offseason of what we were, but I'm always looking for feedback, constructive criticism on the ways that I could do things better for them and ultimately allow them to be better for the players. And then I am always going to be in evaluation mode. But I feel very strongly about the staff we have. Anything that comes up, we'll always, make sure we keep you guys posted on. But I'm much too early in the process with those guys and still giving them the platform to make sure that, I have all the information and all the abilities to improve myself first and foremost, and then continuously looking at ways of improving what we provide as a coaching staff to our players.
5 more minutes.
Kevin, this is a passing league, but do you need to put more emphasis on the running game to make the running game more effective next year?
Yeah, I think, we're incredibly proud of the passing game we put out there, each and every Sunday. There's always going to be areas of improvement, and I did think through that the growth of having to play a significant amount of time without our starting quarterback or the best receiver in football, like some of the things that came from that when you really may not feel like it in the moment sometimes when the results aren't what you want. But the growth in our system, the growth of individual players, very important players for this team moving forward, I think is a positive as far as, when I look at the run game, a lot of times it's the marginal differences between maybe the best team running the football in the league or the teams with true balance to their offense that can still throw it at a world-class level but also have the effectiveness to play the game you want to play, with the run game being a huge part of it. I think it's always going to be something we will continue to look at. I did think that there was some improvement in the run game, how we handled the line of scrimmage, the addition of Josh Oliver, being able to handle the different ebbs and flows of the groups of linemen we put out there that worked well together to do some things. And then there were some other games where we didn't have the effectiveness that we want, and that's where we've got to continue to look at that, both personnel-based and also scheme-based. What do we want to hang our hat on? That's what the run game's all about. The difference between running for 3.95 a carry and 4.25 a carry could be the difference in a lot more manageable downs. And it seems like such a small number, but that's really the difference between being in the upper half or bottom half of the league, running the football per carry. And then the more times you can have effectiveness, efficiency, the more opportunities you're going to get, more time of possession, more ball control. Your defense is resting up on the sideline. All of those things are things that I constantly think about, and just the different avenues of making sure we get that to a place where we completely have the well-rounded offense that we want to have consistently in the top tier of this league.
Where does Justin's stand?
Had a great, actually, dialogue with his reputation this morning. We catch up. I stay in good contact with all of our players' representatives, but we have a great relationship. And the good part is we have a shared history now. We did a lot of the work last season, and so we talked and we said, hey, let's plan to talk again soon. So. Yeah, I'm always optimistic about those things, and obviously we have to address that and a bunch of other things, but looking forward to those conversations.
With Danielle Hunter, he'll be 30 in October, I guess. How do you weigh that part of it?
Sorry, who can you say?
Danielle Hunter.
Okay, yep.
How do you weigh the year that he just had with paying a guy that'll be 30 years old in October?
Yeah, I mean, similar to your question before, I think there's a lot of factors that go into how you're trying to project how a player is going to be over the life of a contract, their age, but how they take care of themselves. And I would argue that he's probably on that Kirk side of things where he's really impactful with his sleep and what he does off-season, different things like that. You've walked by Daniil. I think you understand what I'm talking about. So I think all those things will be in consideration. Look, he had a really great year. He's in the 2 years I've been around him, obviously super productive, but the hustle, just for an elite player like that to play strain the way he does in the run game, strain the way he does, just chasing the quarterback outside the pocket, even if it's not winning the rush initially. We had a great exit meeting, just a great dude, great player, and we'll look forward to those conversations.
I think the only thing to add on that is it was not lost on Daniil being voted a captain and kind of what that looked like. What his teammates look at him like, and I saw some tremendous growth from Daniil and that side of things to go along with the production on the field, and I think that was a really cool part of it. Really, you think about him and Justin Jefferson being, kind of first-time captains there, and what they meant to our team, and the rest of that group helped us persevere and really try to thrive through some of that adversity for sure.
Kwesi, you mentioned a bunch of things you have to do. When you look at all these big-ticket items you have to deal with this offseason, is it fair to say that this offseason is going to impact this organization for the next 5, 8, 10 years, and that you have to get this offseason right?
I would argue that I put that pressure on myself every offseason, but I mean, I think it's important. It's of utmost important, I would say. To say the 5 to 8 to 10 years probably depends on what positions you address and different things like that. But it's an important offseason. I can't really, run from that in any kind of way. We'll continue to battle. We'll continue to identify where we're lacking in terms of where we want to be and where we are now. And that's the mindset we take. The two of us up here are the most inward-looking people you'll ever meet. I don't think there's a day where we see results and we don't ask ourselves how we can be better, and that's what I'm going to keep doing, and we'll go from there.
So you mentioned like as a GM, you might can take some more risks, and maybe for a coach, like entering year 3, does that ability to maybe take more risks diminish?
I think it was a great question to ask. What have you learned? And I think, one of the things you learn as a general manager is ideas and application are obviously a little bit different, right? And there's a lot of stakeholders involved, a lot of people involved in those things. You think about, Kevin having new experience playing a quarterback with how many days, on the team and different things like that. And, I might be willing to say, hey, he's talented, but that's somebody else has to deal with getting them ready with Chris and Wes and all those different things. So really just understanding risk reward, but also the path to how those things actually happen. And over 2 years, we were joking on the bus ride home. We've learned a lot in these past 2 years, and we'll keep applying what we learn. I hope every year that I'm fortunate enough to be up here, you ask me that question, I answer you that I'm still learning, because that means you're getting better and you're staying in the job because you're getting better and you're achieving your goals.
Yeah, just